Before this video starts, I just want to say this is the first time I'm trying unscripted-ish content, so it might be a little bit scuffed, even though I stream sometimes. Anyway, into the vid. Compared to the C, the E has a higher top-end acceleration, and consequently, a higher top speed, though, funnily enough, the C still beats the E to Mach because of its higher mid-range acceleration. On the deck, this is one of the fastest planes top speed-wise, to where Clean Wing, it goes faster than the Biss's rip speed, and almost outruns Phantoms, so if you see a Phantom with bombs, you can probably run their stock ass down. Taking full fuel is somewhat risky, since it makes ripping a whole lot easier, so just take 20. And the instructor on this thing makes the low speed handling downright unusable. On landing, if you're not careful, this thing will just detach and send you into the dirt, and in a turn fight, you might get sick with how much it oscillates. Oh, and speaking of turning, don't. The E is almost 20% heavier than the C, and the extra thrust doesn't really make up for that. This airframe is weird in the sense that it likes to stay fast once it's fast, and stay slow once it's slow, which, I don't know if that's some weird Delta voodoo magic, but it'll make a bit more sense as the section goes on. So if you're right around above 0.85 Mach, you're in what I would like to call the energy retentions. You can keep on pulling with no issues whatsoever, and keep that speed up enough to where if you give like constant little bit of neg G in between each pull, you will have be able to go right back into pulling again. Like, that's a very convenient tool for when you're dodging missiles, like these ones right here, to where I'm just kind of constantly able to dodge however many missiles are being chucked my way. But now that I'm below the 0.85 Mach region, you're going to see me fairly easily be able to just reverse this MF. The Delta just produces so much drag that it's trivial to get behind him. Though I would like to note that if you're above right around Mach, you will absolutely need to pop your air brakes to get slow enough to start bleeding that much speed to get behind a Phantom per se in its Vulcan. But right here, we're about to come up to a very, annoying situation to where a R60 heads me on, and that's a very great segue to the next section. Magics are still just as good as the day they came into the game, as far as I know, but J's and R60s have gotten better. Unlike that R60 clip, if a magic is more than roughly 90 degrees off the rear of a target, it will just stop tracking. But that's not to say that magics aren't good. If you have a solid lock and you're in range, it's pretty much guaranteed to hit. The 530 though is a lot less maneuverable compared to the magic, but it trades that for a really long burn time and a radar guided variant. Both the radar and infrared guided variants are viable, it's just up to you whether you prefer the fire and forget nature of infrared, or if you prefer the head-on taking ability of the radar. The first tactic is climbing, which is a much safer option compared to the C now that you have RWR. Plus, it effectively buffs the 430's capabilities even further, and it gives you the option to dive out on people from above. Though it's still not the best option, especially on smaller mass because you're not the best climbing of jets at that BR. But it's still a viable option to explore. The second option that I found way more enjoyable, not climbing. Radar is good enough to catch out most people easily climbing with the 430, and being in the action early works well with how low endurance the Mehrage is. Though be sure to look up, it's pretty easy to catch missiles from that blind spot. And speaking of low endurance, that's probably what's going to kill you the most. This thing is almost guaranteed 3 kills on a good game, but once you run out of those missiles, you're kinda screwed. In this game here, I had to choose which engagement I wanted to deal with, knowing that full well once I commit to one group, I won't have the firepower to deal with the next one. And of course, I probably made the wrong decision trying to save the 2 further away med planes instead of the Su-17 nearby. It kinda left me without missiles and without a fighting spirit, so I ended up throwing that game. And now I've got one more clip that I want to show off. Right now I'm running away from a Phantom with 1 magic, and I'm headed towards a BIS that's fighting a 104A and an FGR2. So not stellar planes, but we're still theoretically in the numbers advantage, even if we're going against superior planes. And in this fight, I kinda almost go for, I try to take some head-on shots at the BIS, doesn't really work. I think that F4F has Bs, so he's not too big of a threat here. And what I'm just kind of doing is casing the situation. I don't know specifically how it's going to pan out, so I don't know what I'm going to do here. And then I think right about here is where I make a very crucial mistake. Instead of going for the Phantom that'd be stalling out, I try and almost lob a missile off in a head-on for the MiG-21. That lock can be very deceiving, and it just loses it right after. At this point, I'm kind of in a state of despair. If I would have saved that missile and gone and shot it at that F4F right here, maybe even hit my shots here, this fight could have panned out a completely different way. But instead, slightly defeated and with a very, very poorly judged sense of false confidence, I pull right into this BIS, and without thinking, I slowly float up to the top of this stall, and end up right in front of his guns. But that's not really kind of the point that I wanted to come across it with this clip. What I really wanted to showcase is the mentality you should have while grinding planes in general. Don't just take the L and jump into the next match. Learn from that mistake and do better in the future. Just because the plane is shit doesn't mean the pilot has to be. God, I really hope that didn't come off as too preachy. This is a new format for me, so let me know how I did.